Hey guys, this is Shane and welcome to my Curator of the Lost channel. Today, I want to talk about a subject that just got in my mind after going to an estate sale, and that subject is on perceived value. And I think it's something for us as resellers that we have to understand and appreciate, both from a sourcing perspective and how things are priced, and it could even be in negotiations, and definitely on our resale pricing, right? It's the concept of perceived value, and we'll unpack that some. I'll tell you what made me think of it. This story from an estate sale that I just went to that it's kind of comical to me, and then we'll unpack it as far as our book selling, book pricing, things that in situations we get into on eBay, and how maybe keeping this in our mind may help us move inventory. So, hey, before I jump into that, I want to say thank you. Thanks for the channel views, the channel support, the comments, subscribing. We keep growing the channel a little bit by little bit, and you guys keep watching, and we'll just keep doing it. And hey, before I jump in, I'll say my new favorite shirt. This is from Hunter S. Thompson. If you remember The Good Doctor, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but I'm wearing this kind of in honor of my good buddy DC, who is kind of like. He's my Hunter S. Thompson, even though he's not the real good doctor. But when the going gets weird, the weird turn pro. So that's words to live by, right? So let's jump into the topic. All right. So I went to an estate sale, and it was advertised with had a bunch of NASA stuff. North Alabama has Marshall Space Flight Center. I tend to find a lot of NASA stuff here, and it was the third day of the sale, and things were 50% off. And I didn't go earlier. I was busy, a lot of stuff going on with work, around the house, things. But what really kept me from going on that first day was I noticed the pricing that they had on some NASA things. I ended up picking up some pins. I'll show you a few pins. But they had patches, NASA patches, and stickers and pins, and just literally hundreds of them. And the people that had been there evidently had both, the husband and wife had both had long careers at NASA. But the pricing, they were wanting originally $4 for a NASA patch, $2 for a NASA sticker, and $1 for a NASA pin. And what I ended up buying was some of these. We'll see, some Hubble. There's a Hubble Space Telescope. There's a pin, and I got these. There's another one of the, maybe you can see it in there, of the Hubble. I've bought these before with varying degrees of success. There's another one. Some of them are still in the bags, of Hubble. I can put those together. I paid 50 cents each for those. I can put those three together for $12 or $15. I bought like 10. There were a lot of repeats. They weren't all different. There were a lot of repeats, but I bought 10 pins total. It's $5. I'm like, fine. I'm thinking there's this big thing of stickers and some patches, mostly stickers, and a big thing of pins, and there are only like 3 or 4 different ones. And so I asked the lady, I said, would you be interested in just doing a lot sale, just sell all of these for a certain price? And she said, sure. What would you give for them? I said, well, you tell me, because I believe in the axiom, he who prices first loses. So I just thought she would throw a price out and we can negotiate or whatever, Well, she starts counting, and she counts. She has her assistant count all the pins. There's 130 pins. And I know my Southern pin, it's all the same word for us, right? These are, just the little pushback pins. So, and then she kept counting. There were 300 or 400 patches and stickers, and she counted them all. I'm like, I saw what she was doing. I said, look, I don't want you to waste your time. If we're so far apart, it's not going to be worth the time you're sitting here counting. And this thing ended at 4 o'clock. It was like 2:45 on the last day. She finally comes up and she says, okay, well, originally priced, this would have been over $600. It's half price today. It'd be like $330. Where are you at? At $330 is where we're at. And I'm like, well, give me a price. And she's like, no, you tell me where you're at. And so against my better judgment, I said, well, at this point, she's at $330. I said, well, these stickers are not worth that much. They're worth like 50 cents each. And I'm like at a dime a piece, 10 cents a piece. And when I said 10 cents a piece, I don't think I could have shocked her more if I had reached across the table and slapped her. And like her assistant had an audible intake of breath. And so she's like, well, I don't know. And I said, well, you don't have to. This is where I'm at. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to resell them. And for, if I'm selling these and the profit that I'm going to make, and they're not all different, there's a lot of repeats, it's going to take time. So I'm at 10 cents a piece. And so she calls her husband, who also worked at the estate sale, and she's like, does that include the patches? And I'm like, yeah, just everything, right? 10 cents a piece. And she's like, you're saying 30? I said, it's $33 by your calculation. So what's there? And it was all cordial, it was all nice, but I could tell there's this stunned disbelief. And again, this perceived value that she was going to get originally $600 and something for this stuff for the estate sale. And then it was $300 worth of stuff in her mind, but it was like an hour and 15 minutes before closing on the last day, and they still had these things. And I said, well, and she had just told someone that she had anything that was left, she either called people that would just buy it out, or they had other services that would come out and just clean the house out for a flat fee, and give them some kind of profit for it, or whatever. And I know that goes back to the to the owners and all that. I get that they need to maximize profit for the people they're working for, but that's where I was on them. It was, she wanted a price, so I gave her a price. So she said, well, I think we'll wait until 4. Are you close? And I was like, well, not too far away, but I don't think I'm coming back. It's an hour and 15 minutes till closing. And she wouldn't counteroffer, and she wouldn't just say, she didn't say okay. She said, well, give me a call right before 4. And so I left, and as I'm leaving, there's an older lady working the door, and she's like, what, did they sell them all to you? And I said, well, I gave them a price. I don't think they really want to sell them. And she was showing me stuff, and as I was talking to her, I could hear them talking. They were like, well, why don't we just give them away? And okay, that's fine. But there's the circumstance that I found to be funny. Hey, maybe I was off base. I don't think I was for the price, for what they were. I think that was fair, really, for a reseller for what they were. But what struck me coming out of that, I'm not irritated about it at all. I actually found it comical, the whole situation, given that they have this bird in the hand, right? But what I thought was interesting was this concept of perceived value. They were stuck on a perceived value of what they could get from this thing. With, on the third day of the estate sale, an hour before close, they weren't going to make $300 off these things, and they might have sold another dozen of them or 2 dozen of them. And they said they had sold a ton of them. But I think that what's for me, the comical story, but I think the learning point for this, for me, and just kind of self-reflection, is when you go to places and you're buying, and especially if you're doing estate sales or yard sales or something where someone has that emotional attachment, they're not thinking of it in terms of, often they're not thinking of it. Sometimes people just want to get rid of it and they don't care. But sometimes that emotional attachment, or there's the same thing happens in Vegas, right? If you lose and you'll quit when you get back to your original amount. I forget what the technical word for that is, or term, but there's this whole perception. And when you're buying, and if you're negotiating, you have to understand that there is this perceived value that people have on their stuff, right? When it's really not as worth as much as it is as they think oftentimes. And you have to combat that. But where it really comes into play, I think, for sellers, is when we are pricing the things we buy, or we're looking at things. When you get comps, and there's list comps or sold comps that are really high, we start establishing this perception of value, or what we're going to earn. And I've talked about it in the past. Sometimes when you have books on your shelf, or whatever you're selling online, and it doesn't sell like you think it's going to sell, and it's like, to take the price down is like admitting defeat, right? And so we don't, a lot of times we don't attack one of the root causes of something not selling, is maybe that we have it overpriced. And it really is, if you have an item, I think the takeaway for me on this was, if I have an item that's sitting there a long time, I need to really look at it hard and ask myself, have I fallen prey to this concept of perceived value and what I'm perceiving I'm going to get out of it? And I was just wrong. And it's better to just bring the price down and get rid of it, or just to cull it, take it off. It's dead space. And of course, if you're selling on Amazon, they kind of enforce that on you now, right? With the selling limits, and they start charging you for long-term storage. If you're on eBay and you're like me with shelves behind you in your inventory space, sometimes it's that truly you are space limited, and you really need to take the time and say, I was just wrong about this one. I just was wrong, and I need to cull it out. I had a perceived value, what I thought it was going to be. It's just not that, and I just need to cut my losses. Either take my price down or just get rid of it. So to me, that was the big takeaway of, look, it's easy to see when it's somebody else, but look inward and look at what, my stock, and am I falling victim to the same thing on some things that, I'm probably we always want to balance and maximize profits, but my perception of value is off. And so that's my point. Anyway, thanks for the indulgence. That's what happened. I thought it was kind of comical, and it did make me think about this thing that of value and how we price things, and maybe we overprice it because we have too big of an expectation and too much perceived value. But anyway, see cool, buy cool. Price it right, sell it, have fun, and talk to you soon. Bye.